Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Soccer for Us. I am Bart, and I am talking to you on this episode with a newfound positive environment. The U.S. men's national team played 2 friendlies in the month of October, and they did not lose either of them. They had a 1-1 draw against Ecuador and a 2-1 win against Australia. And to discuss these 2 matches with me is the greatest historian on U.S. soccer Twitter and someone who definitely loves a cold night in Denver, Colorado. It is Thomas, aka U.S. Keeper. It looked a little breezy, a little chilly in Denver that night. Definitely different than what they had in Austin the game before.
Yeah, definitely different environments. I had a chance to go to that match actually out in Colorado. It wasn't logistically going to work for me, but I did have some family at the game. They had a good time, and yeah, it's different. It's a different world out there. You never know what weather you're going to get, even
Yeah,
in October, um, in general. But yeah, it was definitely a little bit more brisk for them than it was in Austin.
it was. But I do think that these were 2 very good opponents. I think first off the bat, let's just talk about the fact that look, we give US soccer a lot of heat for a lot of things, deservedly so. But the slate of opponents for the friendlies they have this fall, fantastic. We obviously had Korea and Japan in September, Ecuador and Australia in October, and then we get Uruguay and Paraguay in November. These are 2 opponents that I think are I don't even want to say knockout round opponents in a World Cup. These feel like opponents that we might actually see in a group stage, especially like in Australia, who might fall into that pot with us. And these are very good lessons that we can learn from these games.
They really are. I mean, there will be groups of death, I'm sure, that we'll see defined as that, even with the 48.
Whatever group Ecuador is in, I'm putting that down as the group of death right now because
Yeah,
that seems like that'll be tough.
there'll definitely be some of those for sure. But that's a great point. It's probably gonna see one of these type teams within your group, right? And that's gonna be the difference between probably finishing at the top of the group or, uh, you know, second or third potentially, right? And I think that's where um, you want to position yourself to get the best draw in the knockout stage. And so you're going to have to beat those teams at that level. And then probably, to advance to a quarterfinal, you're going to have to beat a very good
Hmm.
opponent. And I think what we've seen here, even if you include the Mexico final at the Gold Cup, you've seen, 5 matches against quality opponents. And, and we're just building towards this bigger goal of what a World Cup is, and it is good to see all these teams are going to be at the World Cup, and U.S. soccer has done well with that, and it is, and I get it, it is challenging, especially in this landscape, to get these matches scheduled. So, you have some people complaining that you know they should have played Argentina in this spot again, that Australia was in, because I think they played some, I don't know, terrible CONCACAF team, Puerto Rico, maybe. I don't know. They played a pretty low opponent.
Oh, it was Puerto Rico, yeah.
Yeah, and why they couldn't have got to the United States. I think what they're trying to do is, there are just some strategic thoughts behind this, right? You have to build up to things. As much as I would love to play in Argentina, let's build up to that a little bit, right? Let's get
Hmm.
opponents that we can build off, we can grow with. You don't learn a whole heck of a lot um, by losing, big scores. And so these matches that we've seen here, the last 3 of them specifically, have shown, us a lot. I think in terms of this new formation, the players that are being selected. So I think and we've got 2 other good opponents coming up in November in Paraguay and Uruguay. So I think there'll be another good test come November to see how, and hopefully this continues, for them against teams that are going to be at the World Cup. So
I think that's a good point of playing Brazil and Argentina sounds really fun. But the reality is you got to beat a team like Ecuador, you got to beat a team like Australia before you even think about beating teams like Argentina, Brazil, England. Those aren't teams you're going to find in your group, to be just frank, right? They're going to be seeded teams that'll get their own pot, right? They'll be pot A teams, basically. Ecuador, probably a pot B team. Australia, probably a pot C team. These are teams that are likely actual opponents in your group stage. Getting real tests against them is probably more beneficial than, as you said, a marketing gimmick against Argentina. And who knows? Maybe Argentina didn't want to play us either. We don't know. Um, but these are two games that you can actually take valuable lessons from because they are not necessarily meaningful, but they are full of actual talent. They're full of real soccer. This isn't a CONCACAF game where one team is just saying we're putting 27 men behind the ball and hoping that we can grind out a win. There were real strategies on display that the US had to break down in order to find success. Now, I will say that I thought in the Ecuador match we had a lot better opportunities we created than Australia, even though we won the Australia one 2-1. But overall, it did seem like there were intentional patterns of play that were consistent across these two matches. The real question I have for you, Thomas, is how much of what we saw in this window do you think we saw back in September? Like, are we actually seeing a building of a team and a style of play and coherent strategies and actual coherent tactics on the field?
Yeah, I think we got a sense of it a little bit. I think the player pool is obviously a better selection of what was available in this window. I mean, seeing Tim Weah play that right wing back or and left wing back for that matter um, against Australia was I don't say bold. He's played the position before, but it's definitely telling you something about what types of players are going to be maybe called in going forward, right? Like Weah, he has utility. He can play a couple different spots, but in this formation, which you've heard of 4-4, I mean a 3-4-3. I think it's more of a 4-2-1 type of thing where you've got the two kind of attacking midfielders underneath the striker a little bit, and so you'll see like a Tillman or Pulisic fall into that, a Luna, a Reyna, if he ever can stay healthy and get into a camp, fall into that position there. And they're going to leverage, Awea on that wing back a little bit more. And he's going to have to, get back on defense and he obviously push forward on attack. And I think that's going to be interesting to see how that battle works because you are losing it. I don't know how we would play in the Pulisic Tillman type of behind underneath the striker there position.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see really how it plays out when you do have Dest and Robinson, available, within these squads, and hopefully we see it in the next window. I mean, we talk about that a lot, and I think to me, we do need to get a cut. We don't have many windows left. I mean, we've got two, right? And then you obviously you would assume the roster heading into the final window before the World Cup is going to have your squad
Yeah.
there. So you kind of like to see that full group for the next two windows as much as possible, and your preferred starters in there. So it's it's building to that. It's the team has a lot more. I don't know if it's confidence or whatever it is within this formation, but it's what we're seeing is exciting soccer.
It's weird. I made this point on the Soccer Down Here morning show that this formation of the three center backs and only two true midfielders, right, doesn't really fit the strengths of our player pool when you think about it. Because it's not like we're deep at center back, but we are very deep at, especially defensive midfield. But we are deep in the midfield. Like we have guys who can play, decent guys who can play at all those positions. So the fact that you're taking off essentially an attacking midfielder, right, for a center back when we have guys like you said, Tillman, McKinney, Reyna, even Luna, Aronson to an extent, for a center back when no one feels confident about the center backs. We'll talk about them because even Chris Richards looked shaky at very a lot of moments this window. It does feel like it gives us a better shape from which we can build real attacking moments. And I think that's kind of nice to see, but it doesn't really make sense why adding a player that's not great and taking off a player who's probably better overall, why it makes the team better, but it does. And again, that's kind of the point of the coach, that the goal is to get the best team out there. As much as I'd love for it to always be your best 11, that doesn't always happen. But it was interesting to see that we looked, for the most part, in attack, we looked like a competent soccer team, which even during times of the Gold Cup against not good opponents, we didn't look like that.
Yeah, I mean they're working. They work as a unit, and it was exciting soccer to watch, right? And when we go back and look at Jamaica, during the Nations League, right? That to me was exciting. That first half, that home match, and I've talked about this before, but I just think back to that and saying, hey, this is what we want to see. It's exciting, it's loose, it's allows players to use their creativity, use their decision making as opposed to be kind of
Mm,
locked in a box a little bit. And um the good thing, here's the good thing too to take away, right? We've seen multiple formations now under Pochettino. He's tried different things. So he knows now for 3 matches what the three back system can look for. He knows what the
hmm
other formations can look like, right? And so I he's got a couple options now, right? And hopefully he's smart enough when reviewing opponents and all these sorts of things when it gets down to the World Cup matches to building a game plan to go ahead and provide the best opportunity to win. He's going to use the right formations or make the changes necessary to adapt to that. And I think that's the good thing. We didn't see a lot of that under Greg Berhalter. I'm not sure we saw like a 3 match stretch of a new formation,
mm,
right?
yeah.
With your A group as much as it was available, right? And I think that's to me that's a good takeaway. It's building off that, and again, now that you see the kind of player pool, you can kind of look and say, geez, I don't really see where Musa fits in necessarily with this, right? And so that as much as I want to see him on the roster, I don't think he fits in well anywhere in this
I mean, unfortunately, a
formation.
little bit scally as well, because now I'll talk about that because I do think that the first game against Ecuador, that right center back basically played on the touchline as a right back. So I feel like Scally could fit into that, but I get it. Um, I still think that those are more talented players than guys like, I don't know, no shade to him, but Alex Freeman, where I'd just rather Joe Scally, who's actually good at, a much better soccer player than Freeman in there. But, you're trying to figure out the best way to play, and you got to make personnel selections based on that. And if ultimately you're getting the best out of all the other players, then it's probably a good thing. Let's talk about the Ecuador game. This one was on Friday night, October 10th, in Austin, Texas. Interestingly, around the time of Austin City Limits, so that's kind of fun. Um, we had we saw again this kind of 3-4-3 formation that we saw ending that Japan game in, well, actually all in the Japan game in September. Um, the lineup was a little interesting, I think, to say the least. Part of that is because some of the guys not here. So the starting 11, Matt Freese in goal, Miles Robinson as your right center back, Chris Richards in the middle, and Tim Ream as your left center back. The midfield four from right to left, Weah, Tanner Tessman, Aiden Morris, and Max Arfston. And then your front three, it was McKinney and Tillman right and left, and then up top in the center, Flair and Balogun. Um, I do think we need to talk about that midfield pairing. That's where we should start because I don't think it's a shock. We don't have Tyler Adams here. So we knew we were going to get two guys who aren't fully, I don't know, they're not fully teethed yet, right? They're not fully broken into the national team. Testament and Morris was, I don't want to say they're similar because I don't think that's true, but I feel like they are more similar than the other guys are to them. What did you make of this midfield duo, Tanner Tessman and Aiden Morris?
I mean, it was okay. I was hoping. I mean, I wasn't. Aiden Morris didn't really. I don't know. He did not stand out to me as I would have hoped. But to your point, I think that they're too similar in nature in terms of a little bit of not so much skill set, but just like the philosophy behind how they would play the position. I was hope Testman did okay. I was hoping to see a little bit more from him, but I thought he was solid.
Hmm.
Definitely, in my opinion, earns another call back in. Um, I mean, I think he's definitely showing what he can do. Uh, obviously with a full healthy roster, he's not going to be a starter. He definitely will be provide that depth on
I
the
mean,
roster.
maybe that's I think the question I have right now in this formation, but I think
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
probably right.
I don't know where McKinney slots in, right? I mean, does he end up side by side with Adams, or again? I think there's still, to Pochettino's point. Oh, we're done, experimenting. No, you're not. You're not done at all because you have to find out what these
Yep.
combinations are going to do together, right?
Yeah.
So experimentation, and that's a vague term, and I understand what he's saying. Probably more from the player pool perspective, but you're going to have to see how it all works together because they kind of in some respects kind of get lost a little bit. Like it's not a typical midfield, right? Your two holding midfielders are in front, and that's kind of what they're doing. So,
Yeah.
and then Tillman and Pulisic have to come in a little bit at times and create the attack essentially. But what you're seeing from that is obviously more uh, movement and opportunity to get to the striker.
Yeah. I want to we'll compare them a little bit when we get to the next game, but I thought what I took from this game is outside of the moment of the goal that Ecuador scored, which was a mistake on Morris's part because he did not win the tackle. I thought this was a more defensively sound midfield pairing, and it really helped our offense because we were not. Ecuador only created chances on high pressing, which, okay, that's what they do. They didn't feel like they built up a lot, and I think our midfield had a lot to do with that. Um, Also, an interesting pair was our center backs because not pair, trio, I guess, because now we're using three. But the pair I do want to talk about is Miles Robinson on the right, Chris Richards in the middle. Now, Tim Ream on the left, I don't think is a surprise. I think anyone coming into this kind of figured it would be Ream and Richards in the back line at some point. We weren't sure if we'd see a back three or a back four, but Miles Robinson plays that right center back role that kind of was more of a, especially in defense, than actual like right back. I mean, he was on the touchline a lot. Um, that was just interesting to me because I don't think we knew what to make of what the center back, like what type of center back that Pochettino would want from this three center back system. Mainly because in September we saw Tristan Blackman, and I don't think anyone was super satisfied with that. And I think there's a reason he wasn't called back in. It just is curious that you brought in a guy who, in Miles Robinson, who's I think of all the center backs the most just like athletically gifted. He's big, he's strong, good in the air, uh, quick enough to recover. He had a couple of crunching tackles on the sideline. A couple of those were fouls. I don't mind that because put a guy on his butt. I mean, it's if we get to the World Cup and you're fouling a guy on the sideline near midfield and he's going on his butt, I love it. Like, show some tenacity. Um, it- I just think it's curious. He then also gets the start um, against Australia. So I think that this formation, again, against Ecuador, you have a Tim Ream, Chris Richards in the middle, not surprising, but Miles Robinson on that right side in that swing right center back, right back role. I don't know if it's his, but it's interesting that that's how Pochettino's kind of going to use that player in that position.
Yeah, I mean, I had you know posted, I want Miles Robinson to win this position only because I think he's I don't know. He missed out on the last World Cup because of a late injury, and he really hasn't recovered. And he kind of didn't. He don't know if he lost his chance to go to Europe, but he definitely, was impacted by that injury.
He took a
And that,
bigger pay he took a bigger paycheck than the risk of going to Europe.
right. And I just think he's a better talent, but I just don't think he's recovered fully. And maybe we're
Yeah.
starting to see a little more of it. I don't know. I'm not bought into it necessarily. Again, this is where the experiment piece of it has to come into play a little bit. Pochettino has to rotate other combinations in there. I was happy to see McKinney gets to start and plays 90 alongside Richards. Because I mean, as poorly as Richards kind of played at moments, um, you know, in these matches, he's going to be the center back, right, for
Yeah.
in this formation. And so how are you going to sandwich the center backs around him? You know what I mean? I again, I would have liked to have seen Vickers start because we saw Robinson in the first match just to kind of get a different look with that and just see how it's going to work. I mean, I think Robinson did fine. Had moments that were good, other moments that weren't, and but it's just where we have to get more of a feel of who's going to fill that role, and I just don't know.
Mm,
And going back to Joe Scally, I actually think he could play that right center back position.
I do too.
I really do. Like I think he would do well there. He's and so listening U.S. Soccer, bring him on in. Let's give him a chance.
My hot take about that is actually I think he would be a better fit than anyone because he would provide enough support going forward, but he's just not the most adventurous guy going forward anyway. When you compare what we saw in the Australia game with Tim Weah as the left wing back who got forward, it cluttered things up for Christian Pulisic, which is the last thing you want to do. I think it makes sense for Weah to be able to get high up, right, and then the right back kind of just stayed home a little bit. So I think I'm with you. Scally could play that, and he's a little bit better defending as an actual right back than Miles Robinson. I think Miles Robinson is a decent enough defender, but Scally is just more comfortable defending in those spaces because that's where he plays.
Yeah, I mean,
Another thing I do want to, sorry, another thing I want to chat about is the goal because Ecuador does score. It really was one of their few chances of the night. I think that's the one thing that I just want people to kind of like realize is even the goal they scored didn't register as like a big chance, if you will, right? They only had 10 total touches in our box. They had less than 100 passes in our half, right? So I think from a defensive standpoint, you'll take those stats just about any game. The goal they score is because they have, I don't want to say world class guy on their team, but it's fair to say that Inter Valencia is a very darn good attacking player, right? Probably better than anything the U.S. has ever produced, certainly at the striker position. And I'm curious where you saw the breakdown in this goal because a lot of people are going to point to Chris Richards. Fair, he kind of lost his 1v1 battle. Some people will point to Matt Freeze for being a little positioned poorly and maybe not super ready for the shot. It seemed like there were a couple other guys to blame for this goal.
yeah, I mean, it gets through. I'm trying to think who it gets through on the midfield there. Was it
It was Morris who loses
Morris?
that
Yeah, like I
that
say,
1v1, right?
yeah. So it starts with Morris. Richards is definitely out of position. He's not in the right spot.
Yeah.
He's a step or two behind, and he can't recover properly. And then again, I still think Matt Freeze, to me, he's protecting way too the near post on that. If he's a step or two, angled out, he may not save it, but he's certainly going to get his hand on it. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I don't want to sit here and tell you that Matt Turner saves it, Patrick Schulte saves it, Tim Howard saves it. I don't know. But I'm with you. It just felt like he probably maybe could have done better with it.
yeah. I mean, again, this is where too I don't know why he's not starting. Um, another keeper. I think I do know why actually, because Freeze does not have enough international experience. You're going to put a keeper in there that's going to probably. I did the numbers back. If he starts every single um, game, and even the January, I'm not going to count probably necessarily, but if he starts every single match or plays in every single match heading into the World Cup, he's going to either like be one or two off or one or two ahead or tied for the most fewest caps of a U.S. goalkeeper going into a World
Yeah,
Cup. And to me, like you're not going to make up for that because he never went through qualifying. I'm going to die on that hill saying he never went through any qualifying,
yeah.
and these matches are don't have that intensity. You're not playing on the
Because
road.
I'm gonna piggyback on that. Like Matt Turner went through a whole Gold Cup, right? And qualifying.
Two he didn't he do two Gold Cups or did the one was part of the one following it? Probably the one
Uh,
following
he
it.
did the one because of the way. Yeah, he wasn't the guy in 2019. That was Stefan. But for two things. One, I agree with you about the qualifying. Like Matt Turner went through qualifying. He had a Gold Cup, which is a competitive tournament at a point. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that Matt Freeze wasn't good, but he had a good moment in the Gold Cup with that penalty kick shootout performance against Costa Rica. He didn't really have to do much of anything outside of that, and that wasn't really a test. And to be fair, we lost to Mexico in the only game that mattered. We just did, I mean, that's the reality. Um, yeah, you beat Guatemala, but at the end of the day, you didn't beat Mexico, and that was really the only game that was like truly important. I'm with you. He has not gone through qualifying, and I this sounds discrediting to him, and I don't mean it to be. I don't really feel like he won the job in the way that Turner beat out Stefan with on-field performances compared to each other in the same camp and in matches that matter. I mean, yes, I think you can point to the Switzerland match and say that is when Matt Turner lost it. I think it's also unfair to Matt Turner. Yes, he gave up 4 goals, but that was a terrible lineup with an unmotivated team with I mean, just a bunch of dudes who are not very good in front of him. That's just reality. And yeah, he had a bad goal that he gave up, maybe two. He was under pressure all night. He also made some other saves that could have been worse. I I don't think that any of our goalkeepers right now saved that goal anyway. I think that's just maybe fair. But we don't know that for sure. We know that Matt Freese doesn't save it.
Yeah, in most World Cups you kind of know who the starter is going to be heading into that. I still think, I mean, obviously Freeze seems to have the lead on that right now, but there's a long time really between now and May of next year, to really say, hey, this is our number one in Joe because Matt Turner can come in, Schulte can come in my opinion, either one can come in and uh and take the spot. Again, I don't think any of these keepers are like have to be type of things, right? I I won't be upset with anyone necessarily unless it's some other random goalkeeper that we haven't seen, but it's kind of going to be what it is. I definitely favor Turner. I'm not going to deny that. I just think he's a better overall shot stopper. His experience at a World Cup, his experience in qualifying, I think is a huge piece for a goalkeeper. That it's hard to there's no way to do that unless you've had that experience and you can say, well, yeah, we're trying to simulate that with Matt Freeze. It's not going to happen. It's just not, and the pressures of those sorts of moments are going to be there, and we don't know how Matt Freeze is going to respond to it. He may do great, and I hope he does. I'm rooting for whoever's there to do a great job. But I do find it odd that we're not even seeing. You're bringing 4 keepers in, and no one else is getting called in, right? He's bringing all these different keepers in, and just come out and say it. Then Matt Freeze is my number one. Someone else is going to have to beat him out because
Yeah.
it's just to me it's a little bit odd. I think you want to keep, and he could say, well, Turner's already gone out. We know what Turner is. Okay, I think you kind of know what Matt Freeze is too a little bit. Do we know what Schulte is? Because you might have to dig into that, uh, you know, deep into that depth chart.
Um, was there anything else about that goal that we conceded that kind of like worried you?
I found that, and again, I would say this are probably when we look at both moments of the goals in the game. I almost felt like they it kind of woke them up a little bit. They seemed a little not flat, but almost just caught off guard. That
Mm-hmm.
that oh holy crap, like this is happening type of thing. And I think part of that maybe is adjusting to a three back system and the different roles that
Possibly, yeah.
the players have, right? In
Yeah.
understanding, oh, you need to be like making sure you're looking for this space,
Yeah.
where the defender is, make sure they're not on your back or whatever it is. I think that's part of it. I think I saw that kind of on the both goals he conceded a little bit. Um, that there was just a little disorganization, a little maybe lack of communication or understanding of where players needed to be, and probably reacting to that.
Breaking news, not super breaking, but Morocco is going to the U20 World Cup finals. So it was a little bit of sugar on that loss that we had to them that was undeserved, by the way. We will talk about that at the end. Do not think we deserve to lose that match. I thought we were the better team overall, but oh well. Um, I do want to talk about the goal that the U.S. scores in this match because, to your point, it we were doing pretty well, I think, before they give up that goal. I think the goal that we conceded to Ecuador was very disheartening because, for me as a fan, because we were outplaying Ecuador and we didn't really give up an actual chance. It was a blown duel and a dude who just kind of got turned. Not, I don't want to say too easy because I think Valencia does a great job of making Richards commit to one side and then going the other way. And then Tim Ream's too slow to get back and help anyway. But that goal was something that, I mean, you're he didn't. It was just so far away from the goal that like I don't want to say it's a fluke. It's just one of those that, like, it happens. I loved that that did not keep the team down, and they came back and they get a goal very quickly after they come back and they keep coming at it. Right, they get a goal late. Excuse me, I should say, but very quickly after they give up that goal, they're immediately coming back and trying to find. I mean, I think we had one or two shots after that. There was a period of time I think we had like three corner kicks that just didn't result in anything, but it was like continued pressure. And that is, I think, to your point, the key, and it pays off with the goal that Flo Balogun scores. Um, this is the first goal that Ecuador had conceded in 5 matches. So I just want people to realize that, like, the fact that we created 10 shot opportunities, we got 10 shots off in this game. The fact that we were able to do that against a team that, excuse me, 11 shots, sorry, a team that does not concede goals, which means you're not conceding chances. 5 of those were on target. Um, we had 25 touches in their box. I'd like that more, but again, against a team like Ecuador that doesn't give up a whole lot, it just felt like there was consistent activity in their attacking or their defensive third and in and around their penalty area. And to me, it finally pays off with the goal, but it felt like we probably should have scored once or twice before that.
Yeah, they had a lot of real good like high press pressure, right? And so, and on that play specifically, that high press makes them turn the ball over. I think it's Weah maybe that gets the ball to Tillman, and Tillman slots a nice ball in. I mean, Balogun's. I mean, that's not an easy goal. I mean, it's where Balogun's where he needs to be. I think it hits off the right post and
Mm-hmm.
ricochets in and maybe off even though it hits the left post a little bit or close to it, right? And it's a well executed finish, and that's what our strikers need to be doing, right? And they've had more chances within this formation. We saw it against Japan. We saw it, obviously Ecuador, and then again in Australia. Our strikers are getting chances within that free flowing movement, right? They're not so locked in to get this like ball service in the air and hope to win something, and then you know create this like one touch goal. At real tough positions. So to have that movement within the box in that free flowing dynamic type of uh, attack it's refreshing because we've got the players that can deliver the ball to our strikers, and we have good, it's a pretty good striker pool here as we saw in this window, and hopefully we'll see going forward and when Pepe's back.
Yeah, strikers will be an interesting conversation for the end. But yeah, anything else that you saw that stood out from this game, good or bad?
No, I mean, there was a lot of, I mean, they had a lot of possession on the ball. I think the players are figuring out how this formation is going to work a little bit. So, as much as we might want to have seen certain players perform better, like McKinney, I think he was a little bit lost in the position that he was in.
Mm,
I don't think he was, he didn't show well, in my opinion, with where he was. But I think that's a combination of him understanding what the role is a little bit. Um, but I think we're just building. We're just building to that next thing for that. I think it took Tillman a little bit to kind of find his way as well, kind of in that,
mm,
within that formation. I think it's going to take a little bit to understand what it is, because this is pretty unique. I mean, this is definitely not something most of these players formation they play in with their clubs. So three back is definitely specialized. I think Chile is one country that, back in the 2015-16 timeframe when they had some dominant teams. I mean, that formation was tough to beat.
hmm All right, let's move on to the Australia game. We get a 2-1 win up in Commerce City, Colorado, Mile High. This one, I'll just say it right now. I felt less positive about this game than I did the Ecuador game, despite this being a win. How did you feel about the result and the performance?
It didn't, to your point, it didn't feel as, the quality didn't feel as much as it did in the other match. I mean, obviously they had moments, but and maybe it was the personnel on the field a little bit. I think that's part of it. I mean,
Mm,
a midfield of James Sands with paired with Roldan. Roldan had a good game. Everyone, it's okay to say that. Um, I don't know. It just had a weird kind of feel to it. That just, again, I think they're learning it, and I don't think it
yeah.
flowed as well. I don't think they found their way into the game as well. Obviously, Pulisic goes out, in the first half with a hamstring injury, so that maybe changed things up a little bit there, and it was definitely a lot more physical of a match. So it didn't really have as much of the creativity as we had maybe seen against Ecuador a little bit in there. Again, I think part of that's just the person, maybe the midfield personnel was
Mhm.
uh, not as, you know, just not what it needed to be. As
I don't think the midfield had the bite it needed defensively, and
yeah,
I think that was evidenced by the fact that it seemed like Australia had a lot of chances where they were just running right down the middle of the field. Um, is that a roll down and Sands problem? Probably. Sands is not known for being like the most quick and defensively stout central midfielder like that, and I think it's fair to say Rodon isn't quite that way either. The lineup also had some changes, so let's run through that. The one change that didn't happen: Matt Freese in goal, Miles Robinson starts again, Chris Richards in the center, and then Mark McKenzie on the left side of that back line. Your midfield four: Alex Freeman, James Sands, Christian Roldan, and then Tim Weah on the left side. Um, and then your two advanced or withdrawn strikers, whichever one, whatever you want to call them. Weston McKinney and Christian Pulisic, and then the striker up top was Haji Wright. So the key, I think, changes here. We talked about the midfield pairing, completely new. Uh, Tessman and Morris subs benched for Sands and Roldan. For those asking, I don't think this means anything other than I do think Pochettino was. This was one of those tests that you run in friendlies. All right, we did these two guys for basically 60 minutes. Now let's see what the other guys do. Mark McKenzie for Tim Ream was nice to see. I'm glad Tim Ream didn't just get a run out again. And then Haji Wright getting to play striker. I do want to talk about him because he scores the two goals. Um, he he played centrally. I mean, I think that was the thing that was curious about this because we haven't really seen that from the with the U.S. in this type of manner.
yeah. I mean, he's talented enough to play, on the left side. either left wing or in a two striker formation on the left side. And that's kind of what we've been running for a while, and that's really where he's kind of found a spot, you know, in that formation, and he doesn't really have a role there anymore with this formation. So to see him get the opportunity at striker, which I'm a little surprised because he's definitely uh, he didn't get much of a look at the Gold Cup. I think he got called into one other camp maybe and just didn't get a
Yeah.
look. And I'm like,
Well, and he doesn't play that for his club. I mean, he just doesn't
yeah,
anymore. He's a pretty much a left winger now.
yeah, and I'm kind of surprised he started. I mean, I thought Agumon was going to get the start. I thought it was a no-brainer. I thought I even saw some people say that he was going to either come off the bench or whatever, which he didn't either. Um, so, and Haji was, I mean, he's a very, I mean, he can move well with the ball too, right? I think that's the thing. He's a little bit more dynamic in that striker position, right? As you saw, the two goals are pretty spectacular. One with the right, one with the left, right? And
They were both similar goals, and this is why I think he started. Is he to me matches what Falarin Balogun does more than Pat Ajuman. And to an extent, I think even Pepe matches that more. Those guys are guys who are going to run into channels in ways that Pat just doesn't.
yeah, absolutely. And even you can add Sargent to that. I don't think Sargent does that at that ability more. He's a little bit more targeted as a striker, and I think
Yeah,
when you look at like Balogun and Wright, they're able to create a little bit more given that space, right? And I think that's where Agumang doesn't have it, Sargent doesn't have that, and maybe where he finds a roster spot, here is because of that. I mean, he's been playing well with his club. Again, he got the chance, he made the most of it. He looked great out there. He finished two beauties of a goal. I mean,
great finishes. The
yeah,
first one I think better than the second one, weirdly, because of I mean he finishes that near post and he had a defender right on him. Second one's a great little cutback that he curls around the goalkeeper, but like both left footed, which whatever. If we want to be nitpicky, we can, but like really good finishes.
yeah, yeah. I was happy to see that. Um, I was gonna send a tweet out right before the first goal and said, "How the hell is this U.S. team going to score goals? Right? How the hell are they going to
Yeah.
score goals? Because even as well as they looked against Ecuador, they just still weren't finishing. Right? I want to see they and that I'm still concerned with that. Like because their defense is not going to. I don't think shutouts are going to be.
No,
I don't think we're going to
no.
see a lot of shutouts. I just don't, and they're going to have to score multiple goals to win matches at the World Cup. And how they find those goals is going to be important because they're going to need
Mm,
to create in some manner, and to see Haji do that was good. But who else, right? Do we have another midfielder? Do we is McKinney going to do something? Is Tillman going to be able to do something
yeah.
against better quality opponents to help score those goals? Because I mean, I will say the strikers are doing it right now, and that's important.
All three goals in this window scored by a striker.
Yeah,
Now that is a great positive because to your point, uh, look, we haven't had strikers scoring goals, but you do need to have someone else look like they maybe could. I thought Tim Weah actually took some of that on himself when he was playing on the right side. He had a couple of chances cutting in, but I'm with you. We got to find someone who can complement our strikers in that goal scoring threat. Um, what did you think of Mark McKenzie? The goal doesn't happen on his side that we concede. It was I don't know, a calamity of people not wanting to defend. That was an annoying goal to give up to Australia, but I don't know what to make of Mark McKenzie, and maybe that's a good thing.
yeah. I think I need to see more because we've
Yeah,
not seen him in a while. I think I need to see more of him, in this formation with alongside Richards. I think he needs another. I mean, I don't think he hurt himself or anything of that nature, but um, I'm not Pochettino, and knowing him, he players can get on his naughty list pretty quickly.
yeah.
But I just think I need to see more. I thought he distributed fine out the back. Uh, he he didn't wow me, but he didn't he was, you knew he was out there. He
Mhm.
wasn't, you know, he didn't get, not seen out there, which sometimes happens.
Mm.
with in the midfield in pass formation. So yeah, I need to see a little bit more from him with this group, and hopefully he can find a spot or be like a solid you know reserve, because I do think he's on that line a little bit. And as much as I just think Tim Ream is just not he's just not fast enough. There's a lot of things there, and we don't have a lot of options. We're not deep in the pool, so uh, we we've got who we've got, right? And
Mm.
I don't know
Yeah.
who else we could go to. Obviously, Nokai Banks was here. I would have loved to seen him play. Hopefully, he gets another shot in November to do that as well. But it's yeah, it's a work in progress. I think
Mm.
there's probably some nerve elements in there that because he hasn't. I'm trying to. I have to go back and look specifically, but I don't know when the last time McKinney started. Let me just quickly look if I can find it. Started for the U.S. Let's
Oh
see.
goodness.
It's
Did he play in those? I'm trying to think. Did he start for the March window at
yeah,
all?
the March.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
he started in the second Nations League match alongside Vickers in there. So
Well,
yeah,
again, I'm with you. Someone do something over better than Tim Ream. That's just where we're at.
yeah, and I think Ream on this roster is fine. I have no issues with that. I think we need to make sure we're putting out the best um, within this within the group, within the formation, within the tactics. And Tim Ream just makes me nervous. And he's 38 years old, and 38 year olds. I don't know. I'm 46, and you lose a little bit every year after
Yeah.
that than you had before.
I
So
mean, I feel sometimes you lose a little bit every day.
you might. You really might. It's impressive what he's been able to do. Uh, it's too bad it came in so late in his career, because he definitely had been in and out of the national team for quite a while. And it's a great story for the 2022 World Cup, but I think it's someone else's time, and hopefully some other center back steps up and takes that spot. But McKenny
Mm.
didn't do that, but I don't think he. Yeah, I think he also earned another look.
So we get again a 2-1 win over Australia. We're now unbeaten in three, Thomas. So that feels a little bit better to say. Let's turn our attention to more of the big takeaways from this window. Give me three guys who you thought their stock went up, but either in this window or people who maybe aren't here, maybe their stock went up. But who do you think after this window their stock is now up?
Obviously, I think Haji Wright's an easy one. I think he was definitely borderline in a lot of ways, and his performance against Australia and his two goals definitely increased his stock. Maybe not surprising, but Brendan Aronson came off the bench in that Australia game, and I thought he really, you know, did the Brendan Aronson type of, things that we
That
kind of
role fits Brendo better,
it really does, like it really does. And so,
both offensively and defensively. It fits him
yeah,
really well.
and so I think Pochettino liked him from day one, and I'm not sure he really felt where he could fit in, but that you're right, that role really does work well for him. So
Hmm.
we'll see how that progresses on that for him.
I,
Uh,
I gotta I gotta say it. Stock up was Christian Roldan. He had a good game. You cannot say anything. I mean, the negative I'll say is he and Sands felt defensively weak, but he got two assists and he looked good in attack in that game against Australia. So his stock went up. Now it went up from zero for me, or maybe it went to zero for me as opposed to being negative, but it went up.
yeah. That's it's hard to argue. I'm not rooting against the guy, but like to
Yeah.
me, it's a player who hadn't been called in since 2024. January camp for Christ's sakes, and so to me, it's good to see that there's something. I don't look, I've been on a lot of teams. A good vibes guy is important. I
Just
jokingly, I jokingly said, well, maybe he needs to retire and be hired as a coach, right? Because, to, but in a 26 player roster, they're not all going to play, right? He didn't
yeah.
play in the last World Cup. There's been 23-man rosters where players don't play, so there's not like it. But to me, it's a little bit of a throwaway. I don't think he's quick enough. I don't think he's skilled enough to play quality soccer against in a World Cup against quality teams. I know he did against Australia, and you may find an opponent or two that he can do that against. But when you get to the tougher opponents, the top tier teams, he's gonna be a liability on the field. And I'm very curious to how he found his way back to the national team after being gone for that long. And now you're seeing him in two
Look,
back to back
he's had a
camps.
very good season in MLS. Cool. Like I think the thing
Yeah.
is like how many times we said, "Oh, this guy's having a good season in MLS," doesn't really translate. How many times we said, "Oh, this guy's having a great season in the championship," doesn't really translate. So he had a good game. That's all I'm saying. He had a good game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I'm not
Now
taking that away from him. I'm just to me, I'm
had
just
a good
like,
game.
yeah.
He notched assists number 2 and 3 in his national team career finally after what 47 caps. So congratulations to him. Another dude I do want to say I think his stock went up, and we talked about him negatively because he was kind of a key in that goal that we conceded to Ecuador. But I do think Aiden Morris stock went up because he kind of fits the type of dude that Pochettino likes. He's a hustle guy, and I think somehow the Argentinian manager thinks hustle guys are way more important than like really on the ball skill players sometimes. Um, I think his stock went up. I don't know how far it went up. I don't know if it is breach starting 11. I don't think that's at it at all. I don't even know if it's breach 23-man roster. Who knows? Because no Tyler Adams, no Johnny Cardoso in this camp. Again, no Yunus Musa. It's hard to really make a judgment on like the depth chart of the more defensive midfielders. I just want to note that he looked pretty good, and I think he did a lot of things that Pochettino likes.
Yeah, I think within a 40-man provisional, if that's a number we want to throw out there, a 35, on 35, even a 35 one, which has been pretty,
Yeah,
which is
I'd be fine
yeah,
with that. If he's one of your guys, if you're saying, "Hey, this is my list of 40," especially again in a position that's pretty stacked, if he's there on the depth chart of top 5 or 6, that means you're in the conversation if number 1 or 3 or whatever goes down. So hey, um, I just wanted to throw those guys out there because I don't think a lot of people are going to mention them for a number of reasons, but I do think that their stock went up. That doesn't mean that no one else's stock went up. Those are just the guys I wanted to mention. On the flip side, we got to talk about guys whose stock decreased, and I'm just going to throw this out there. Two guys who I think have had played meaningful roles in this national team did not get any minutes this window. Matt Turner is one. I think his stock went very down. Cameron Carter Vickers, not a single minute this window. Especially when you're playing a three center back system, you get no, and you're a center back, you get no minutes. That's not a great sign.
yeah. I mean, it's not great. I mean, he got called in. It's been a while since he's been called in general. I mean, and there's speculation. The comment that Pochettino made about MLS being a better league than some of the other leagues, and
Look, I think it is very fair to say that in total, MLS is a better league than the Scottish Premiership. I do not think that is a hot take. I think on the whole, the players in MLS and the teams in MLS are better than the Scottish Premiership. However, Cameron Carter Vickers plays for Celtic, which is a better team than anything we have in MLS. I think that is also fair to say. So I kind of understand where he's coming from, but it's like, come on, bro. Like he's playing Europa League matches. He's it's not quite. Oh well, he plays in the Scottish Premiership.
yeah, and I still think he needs a look, right? And I don't mean to look at camp. I mean to look in the game, right? And look to see
We gave Tristan Blackman 2 starts. We're going to talk
exactly.
about this on another player. We gave Tristan Blackman 2 starts. We gave CCV no minutes in this window. Really?
Right. With a new formation. And I think that's the key piece that I'm going to hang my hat on or continue doing that is that the whole thing changes. When you're starting Tim Weah as a a truly, wing back position, which he really hasn't played for this national team, and you're going to three backs, you know, to me you need to see how that works. And I don't know what he's seeing or not seeing. I mean, he made a lot of changes. To me, you make other changes, right? Like you put Turner in there, you put Vickers in there, right? You give them a chance to go out there and show that. I mean, I think you at least give them a chance.
Yep.
Aronson had a moment in the second match, and he to me he went out there and he showed what he could do.
Yeah.
In that 20 minutes or whatever it was he played. And to me, that he took that opportunity, but the players need those opportunities given to them. Uh, and maybe they're earned in practice. I don't know. I mean, we know what Robinson is, in my opinion. Maybe he wanted to see a little bit more. I clearly he did because he didn't. I think he played the whole Australia match. He did. He was subbed out in the Ecuador match, but yeah, I it's it's a head
Yeah.
scratcher. It's just a head scratcher to me. It's with some of the things he does. Um, but it's building. It's moving in the right direction with things. I hope it continues to see those things, and he'll obviously have a chance to see as many
Mhm.
MLS players as he wants come January camp. So he'll get to eat that up,
Yay.
which is again kind of why I want to see some of these other European players get a chance in this next November window to be on the roster to play, because you're going to have Tim Ream, you're going to have Miles Robinson
Well, I think that is
available.
actually an interesting point because with the way that the schedule for MLS Cup playoffs go, not that necessarily there will be a break, but I am curious how many of those guys who are possibly participating in MLS Cup playoffs at that point, Pochettino will call up. Um, I have no indication whether he will or won't necessarily. That's not something I've read the tea leaves on, but it wouldn't shock me if because I mean, you look at Seattle, you look at I mean, Cincinnati, maybe. I think Columbus wants to be there. I am curious how that will manifest when um, that kind of time comes to put this roster together because you know the playoffs run on either side of that November window. You have the round one and then conference semifinals. So semifinals means four teams each. So hopefully your best teams are making it in theory, and that means your best players are playing on the best team. So I'm just curious um, if that means more European guys um, in November. I don't know.
Yeah, I
We'll
don't.
see.
I mean, if U.S. soccer does what they do with the European, it's kind of the September window a little bit and slight injuries and that sort of thing. The same consideration has to be for MLS. You cannot be pulling these guys who are fighting for a championship out. In my opinion, I mean, that would be crazy.
I
Like,
mean, if you think about what let me pull up the standings real quick. About what like the top teams in MLS are right now, and the guys that we have on it, right? Okay, Philly, we don't really have anyone there. Cincy is Miles Robinson. Miami, no one anymore. Charlotte is Tim Ream. You know, Columbus is in the top nine. They're in a playoff spot. They've had a bad season, but they're in a playoff spot. That's in the East. In the West, Vancouver, right? That's Sebastian Berhalter. Brian White too, but just Sebastian Berhalter. San Diego, that's Luca De La Torre. Seattle is Christian Roldan. Like there are guys who possibly, if their team is as good as we see them in league play, they're going to be playing. And so I do wonder how much that'll affect things going on. I mean, I don't think with Real Salt Lake and Diego Luna we have anything to worry about. They're not looking great right now, but yeah, they're in ninth, so we'll see. But it's curious. Anyone else who's from your vantage point, their stock decreased?
James Sands, I think.
Yeah,
I think, I'm glad he got a look. Um, I think
That's all
again,
we wanted. That's all we want. We
yeah,
just want them to get a call up and get a look. That's all we want.
yep. You got to look. I think really, I think if he happens to be there because we're talking injuries to certain things, I'm okay with that. I like what
Sure.
Sands has provided,
I
but
think pairing Sands with Roldan isn't great because I do think if he's paired with like a Tyler Adams, maybe he is a little better suited because his weaknesses aren't as greatly exposed. That's all.
yeah, he distributes very well with with out of the back there. He kind of dropped to play center back at times. It felt like I don't know if it was really the case, but I there he's just not fast enough. He doesn't do things as fast as they need to be. Um, is all again. Glad he got a look. Um,
That's the scouting report on him. I mean, honestly, said it is what
yeah,
it is.
yeah, and so I'm surprised he got a look. But I think that other than that, I think that kind of where it is. I think there's certain play like Freeman didn't really impress me one way or another. I think he's a lock on this
I
roster.
think what I'll talk about this in my overall take, but Freeman is whatever. I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. One of the things I think I learned overall is Tim Weah was played in multiple positions, and I think that's indicative of Pochettino when he was talking about some of his fullback depth chart about other guys being able to play multiple positions. Tim Weah playing on the right and the left to me signals and that winger that it wasn't a winger, it was either a wing back or an actual like right-sided or left-sided midfielder role. Whichever way you want to look at it, it was not like a winger. He was not he provided the width in attack, but it wasn't like that was his job as winger, right?
Right.
I think that is pretty indicative of two things. One, Tim Weah is still very talented, and Pochettino wants to use him because it would be insane to not have Tim Weah on the field. He's a talented soccer player, smart soccer player. But I think that kind of tips your hat of like, okay, well, Destin Jedi didn't play any minutes this window, not a surprise. Dest didn't play any minutes this window, not a surprise. And if you're telling me that if we have either one of those guys out and Tim Weah slots in at that role, I think that like that makes a lot of sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and he showed he can do it.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I
didn't
think
like him as
that's
much on the left. I think that's because he and Pulisic got in their
yeah,
way. But like that can be, in my opinion, that truly can be fixed with time of like actually playing together.
exactly. I mean, I think Robinson is definitely better suited in with Pulisic on the left. They've played enough together to understand
Yeah.
how it works. But I think that's just a playing time and um, situation that it can be fixed. But yeah, it just shows you the lack of depth. It shows you, you know, Tolkien's not going to be called in.
Yeah.
Lund is done. Wiley
Yeah.
just never really could stay healthy and get that look. Maybe he gets it, maybe he doesn't.
Yeah,
Um,
they're young enough to be factors, I think, next
oh
time,
yeah,
like
and
truly next time
Peyton
around.
Miller is too young. I
Yeah.
mean, in general, so I think
Peyton Miller,
um,
can he drive? Like, I mean,
uh,
is he old
I
enough to drive? He is.
yeah,
He's
he'll be in
17
Europe
still.
pretty soon, right? He turns
I
18. It's just
I
yeah,
do agree. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, other thing I think I learned overall, just I think this is my big takeaway. We had a consistent game plan. Now, again, things change from game to game, but the overall strategy, right, was consistent. And I don't feel like we had it's consistent and it worked, right? We had an overall strategy that was consistent and worked, which I don't think we've had under Pochettino because even when he was consistent with his strategy and mostly consistent with his tactics, it didn't really work that well. Don't talk to me about the Gold Cup. I'm sorry. Okay, great. We beat Haiti and we beat Trinidad and okay, we beat Guatemala and Costa Rica. Great. Those are expected things. Outside of Costa Rica, none of our wins, outside of Saudi Arabia, I should say, none of our wins in the Gold Cup were that impressive. Just facts. We didn't look great against Switzerland. We looked okay against Turkey, and March was terrible. So the fact that we had 3 games in a row, counting that Japan game, where we looked competent in a formation and a tactical setup, I think is a huge positive going forward. That makes me feel confident.
yeah. I would agree. I mean, I think that's what we want to see a little bit more of. and continue building on that and seeing where these players slot in and how it all pieces together. And so it's a build towards this, right? And I think the one point we haven't brought up that players have kind of brought up a little bit and Pochettino's kind of brought up a little bit is there is a mentality piece to this, right? There is a mentality that it feels like it's changed, right? Something changed, right? Something's changed. Some fire was lit a little bit. And they realized, holy crap, we got a World Cup coming here in less than 200 days now. Uh,
I mean, we're
yeah,
we're now fit like our first game is June 12th. We are less than 9 months away.
right.
So,
And I think that piece of it, and these players wanting to be there. Pulisic, he was playing a little banged up. He came off the bench in the first match. He started, hurt his hamstring, but he wants to be there, right? He wants to earn that. He wants to do that, and so we're starting to see that fire a little bit. We're starting to see that desire, and we're starting to see that continuity building, and the fight for one another, and right, and that's
mhm.
very old school U.S. soccer, right? That's old school, like grind out these sort of things, fight together, win together, figure out a way to do it. And that's there. We're seeing that build. And we've got to have that, right? Now it's they went through wars to qualify, in 22, right?
Mhm.
They didn't have to qualify, made it a little bit more, I don't know, easy on them. But now they're fighting for that, right? Is that on Pochettino for lighting that fire? A little bit. It's on the players for taking in that and taking it seriously. And it needs to continue, right? We need to continue pushing each other. They need to continue pushing each other along the way because you never know who's going to be there in the end, right? Who's going to be available, who's going to be there, and you have to get the most out of these players, see how it all works. So that's kind of my other takeaway from this window. We're starting to see a little bit more of that.
Look, the match against Ecuador was intense because I think both teams were very operating at a pretty high level. Um, the match against Australia was intense because Australia was dead set on hurting someone, it seemed like. I mean, those tackles they were putting in were nasty. Um, but look, we had I think it was after the Ecuador game, or when was it? The yeah, the Ecuador game. The Pochettino posted on his Instagram story, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast," and I think what we just talked about is both sides of that coin. Yes, there seems to be a mentality and a culture change, but like it somehow also pairs with a strategy shift. And I don't want people to think that it's just, oh, we worked hard. It's like, well, we're working hard in a system that kind of maybe amplifies our best characteristics, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's the key, right? We don't have the best players in the world. We don't have the depth that some countries do, but we do have a dynamic group of players that if you get the right coach to pull every ounce of everything out of them, right? However that's going to happen. Um, you know what can this group do, right? What can it do?
Yeah.
We saw it in '94. That group, they pulled out every ounce of it. They fought Brazil to a 1-0 loss, right? On home on the 4th of July. Like, just can this group find that, you know, within their coaches, within themselves to be able to do that? And we're starting to see it a little bit. And it's kind of exciting. I mean, to do that because we haven't had a lot to play for since last summer.
We haven't. We have not had a lot to play for since last summer, and I think that is if you listen to Total Soccer Show, Graham talks about this a lot, where a lot of teams hosting the tournament struggle in the lead up to the tournament because there is nothing to play for. I mean, you're qualified. What does it matter? And I do feel like the U.S. was a little bit in that because here we are, um, qualified for a World Cup. We are not fully even in a like a generation change, like I mean, as much as people want to shit on Greg Berhalter for, oh well, the lineup wrote itself, it still kind of does. I'm gonna be real honest with y'all. I mean, our best 11 are still pretty much the same as they were back when Greg Berhalter was here. Did I think Pochettino maybe manufacture some drama and some position battles? Uh, but if you're telling me that the best 11 still, what, 8 of the best 11 are still not here, I mean, I'm gonna call BS on that, right? It's hard because we don't. I mean, even the players didn't really feel like they had much at stake in every game. So it there's just been it's nice to just see them, as you said, playing hard, playing tough, playing with some sort of fire. And like I like that. They play like they actually realize, hey man, there's a World Cup coming home in 9 months and we gotta be ready for it. Do you want to be remembered as heroes or as jokes? Which one do you want?
Right. I mean, they looked a fool against Copa America, right? And
Yeah.
I don't know how much they felt that sting of it uh in general, but it was bad. I mean, it was bad. Like and it didn't need to be. And and then Canada goes to makes that run that we were hoping to make, right? In that tournament. And everyone's cheering Canada, they're going to be great. And so who knows? But
By the way,
you know,
Canada lost to Australia this window, 1-0 at home. So just pointing that
yeah,
out there.
yeah. So I think there's a lot of pride behind it too. I mean, we don't know when the next one's going to be. I don't think it'll be as long as from '94 to 2026. But
The way the
um,
FIFA's forcing things, no, I don't think so.
yeah, I mean, I think there's too much money in the United States. But um,
Well, we'll see.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, I'm excited to see that fire with this, going
Yeah.
forward, and how they prepare. And I think at this point, and I know there's always a debate, club over country, country over club. I think when you get into a World Cup in your sights, some of that changes, and we're
Yeah.
seeing that a little bit, right, with
Yeah.
players coming to camp not fully fit, not playing necessarily, but being in camp, right?
Right.
Robinson
Jedi
wanted to
coming
be
to
there,
camp is still really important. I agree. Jedi
right?
coming, and look, I understand he can't play. We have 26 guys on the roster. That's fine. Coming to be part of camp is important.
It is. I think it's huge, and him wanting to be there and pretty much knowing he's not going to play um, is to me extremely telling in terms of the desire for these players to make this roster, to make this team, to be around it. I mean, I'm sorry, Roldan is given a gift to be around this. Like what I wouldn't, what players would do that are so much better than him just to be around it, just to sit
Yeah.
around it, not even participate. I mean, he's blessed because it's twice for him, right, to do that, and he's not anything other than maybe a locker room type player.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And good for
seriously.
him for that. Hey, it's a great story. I tell my daughter about it. I said, look at this guy. He's an okay player. He's doing all right in MLS, but he's getting called into the national team. He has 2 assists against a good Australian team, and he's around it. And part of the reason he's in there because got a great attitude. He's positive. He has all these different intangibles that are off the field. It's a great lesson to learn. Sometimes the best players don't get called in. Sometimes the ones with the good attitudes, and it's a
Yep.
great message for kids to see that in general. And I think it's important too. I mean, that it is a great message for the young fans out there to see a player like that called in and understand that he's called in for multiple reasons, but because he is, a great presence, a great positivity, to the players, to the program.
Listen, I've said this about college recruitment a lot. Attitude and academics matter a heck of a lot when it comes to bringing in players into a team because you can only have so many headaches on a team. And I'm speaking from experience as a guy who's brought in for attitude and academics into his team. We had a lot of headaches on our team. And the reason my coach relied on me is because I wasn't a headache and he knew I could be a positive attitude on the team. I wasn't going to cause them any problems academically. And that's kind of a little bit what Roldan is. I mean, seriously, that's not a bad thing. All right, I don't want to end on Christian Roldan. So here's the final question before we get out of here. Scale of 1 to 10. What's your confidence level right now in this team? performing well at the 2026 World Cup.
I'm gonna go right in the middle. They still have 2 windows before the full, the roster selected. I'm gonna go in the middle. And to me, because they were below that heading into September. To me, there are 2 or 3. I had no confidence. I didn't know what it was going to be. I always questioned where they were if they had to qualify right now. What the kind of results we'd be seeing from them. But yeah, I'm in the middle, 5 or 6, and I think there's a lot to grow on. And it is exciting to see it start to take form, take shape, and maybe it's by plan, maybe it's by luck. I don't know. I don't really care as long as it continues moving in the right direction for this team, for this group. Because if soccer is to grow in this country and continue to grow, we need another revolution, and we need to see this team and
Mm-hmm.
people around it get excited, right? Get excited for it. Find something to get excited for. We talked about these windows and what we need to see. We need to see results. Right now, we got we're 2 wins and a draw. You know, 3 matches. Let's continue rolling on that.
I love it. I'm at a 6. I'm slightly above average, I guess, or in the middle positive, because I do think one of the hindrances of this team, why we haven't been feeling good about them, is because we haven't been able to see the full squad together in a very long time. And so I think now that we're seeing a little bit more of it makes me feel a little bit better. Um, and the fact that our strikers are scoring goals makes me feel good. So I'm at a 6. All right, Thomas, thank you for joining me on this episode of Soccer for Us. Again, you can follow him on Twitter at USKeeper. You can follow me on Twitter at Soccer for Us Pod and on Blue Sky at Soccer for Us Pod. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm Bart. I'm out.